So I used to work in a bookstore, and it was before I ever read manga, and I just didn't really think I would be interested, and now I'm obsessed with manga. So back then I remember that this was my first ever experience with Junji Ito. Never read it. I was never going to plan on reading Junji Ito, but this book, one of my co-workers put it facing out in the manga section. And I swear, this cover freaked the life out of me. I could not work in the manga section if this was facing out. It was just her face. It was the way she was looking. The thing that's on her head, I have no idea what was going on here. But every single time I saw this book facing out, I would sneakily put its spine on. I wouldn't have it face out. It scared me too much. And every now and then I go back in the manga section, it would be facing out again, and I would just be like, nope, it's going spine on. I'm not looking at that face while I'm working a 9-hour shift. So it's really funny that this is actually going to be the first Junji Ito story that I will ever read, because it was actually my first ever experience seeing a Junji Ito book. So that is actually kind of perfect. It was fate. It was destiny. And now I'm not as scared of the cover anymore. Okay, I've read my first ever Junji Ito stories. So mark the occasion. The first ever Junji Ito story I read was Blood-Sucking Darkness. My first ever, okay? And it was good. I think the entire collection itself was pretty good too. It didn't blow me away, and honestly, I wasn't expecting it to. I'm reserving that kind of judgment for other Junji Ito stories. So fortunately, I feel like it's actually been a success to start off with this one. Ash. Hiya. Hiya. You sexy man. Do you want to be on the camera? You want to be on the camera? Yes. Yes. Oh. Yeah. Hiya. I know I love you. I love you. Yes, I know. I'm going to film and then we'll play. So there were 13 horror stories in this, and there were a few that I liked. Blood-Sucking Darkness, it was good. It was about a girl who had her heart broken and she develops an eating disorder. She meets a guy, well, he's in her class, but she doesn't really know him. And turns out that he has been given his blood to bats or something, and has been given his blood to her while she's been sleeping. And there were some like very scary things that happened in that story itself. Oh, I know. It'll not take as long, okay? One thing I really love about Junji Ito that actually is quite apparent in this story, once I finished the collection, I realised that it's one of the things I love about his artwork are his faces. I feel like he can make faces so terrifying, and probably the most terrifying aspect of this story. Oh, Ash, you're so distracting. Oh, you see what I've got to put up with. So for instance, when she's looking for the guy's head, I think I'm gonna have nightmares about this tonight, not gonna lie. Did I mention mild spoilers? But this, oh no, that's like so, oh no, oh that's awful. But I gave this story a 6 out of 10. I thought it was good, but it didn't exactly blow me away, but it was a good introduction. I gave Ghost of Primetime a 4 out of 10. It had a good concept, but I just wasn't really that scared by it or anything. It's about a couple of comedians who, well, whenever they give a performance, their souls kind of tickle the audience until they like laugh so much that it hurts them. And our main character, the story, he doesn't laugh at them because he can see the spirits, he can see the souls around him, and he always has been able to do that. So these two comedians, I mean, yeah, they do also look pretty scary, not gonna lie. It's like eyes. Like, Junji Ito has a really great way of depicting eyes, so they can be quite freaky, but I just didn't really find it that scary. Even though there were some like really good moments in the story, I wasn't blown away by this one. And then we have Raw, which I think also had a pretty good concept, but I only gave it 5 out of 10. It follows these two guys who are walking through the woods, and out of nowhere this like flash flood happens. And as they're like trying to like get stuff to help, when they turn around, the flash flood isn't there. And it doesn't even look like one actually happened because the floor isn't wet or anything. So, you know, they are a little bit lost in the woods. They come across this house with a man in it who tells them, yes, there was a flash flood, but this was years and years and years ago. And his wife was among the people who lost their lives in this flash flood, and he's been spending 30 years trying to get her to come because this like illusion of this flash flood happens pretty much every day. But there was like this whole forced kind of storyline at the end that ties into family with the main character, and I don't know, I felt like it was unnecessary because it just, I don't think it added anything to it. In fact, it made it more unbelievable, which, you know, I'm suspending my disbelief at the best of times. You know, I have to, because a lot of these stories are so wacky and crazy. So I suspend my disbelief, but I think it just, it took a little bit away from it. And it wasn't really that scary either. Even though it's a bit of a scary concept, I didn't find it that scary. But I gave it 5 out of 10 because I really liked the whole flash flood aspect of it. So some really strong visuals, and honestly, Junji Ito is a fantastic artist. The lines of this, the way it looks like it's actually in motion, just so beautiful. I already feel, even though this book didn't blow me away in general, I feel like Junji Ito is going to be someone I'm really going to enjoy. But then Earthbound, oof. So I gave this one 7.5 because I don't think it really scared me, but I love the concept. So essentially, there are people who just randomly get frozen in these positions. Like, they can still talk, they can still kind of move, but for some reason, just in random spots, these people just kind of stop and they do like a random position where it's like either doing that, or, you know, they've got their arms outstretched and you can't really budge them, and if you do budge them they end up going back to that point. So it was like really bizarre, and I liked the idea of it because we follow this young girl who works for a place that tries to help these people. They're called the Earthbound, and there is like this young boy who is like frozen in place at this random sort of spot, and she wants to try and help him, but she can't really. She talks to this guy at work. He's kind of like her boss. I think she calls him Chief. He ends up getting frozen in her apartment, even though he wasn't invited, and like she just saw him at her workplace. He's just randomly in her apartment, and he's standing like this, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of terrifying. So, you know, time goes on, and as she's talking to this boy who's frozen at the side of a road, it's actually near where his dog was buried, but he confesses that he's the one who killed his dog. So it seems like the people who are Earthbound are there because they have a guilty conscience, and they're frozen in that spot because of that. So her boss, the chief, why is he in her apartment? She reveals that she was assaulted months and months and months ago, and they never caught who did it. It wasn't a different apartment apparently. A little bit of it's left to your imagination because there also seems to have been potentially a murder that happened around here too. They didn't catch who did it, so it could have been her boss. But yeah, that's kind of scary. So I really enjoyed that one. Then we have Death Row Doorbell, and this one did creep me out. Like, it felt a little bit repetitive by the end of it, that I wasn't exactly bored by it, but I mean, I still gave it a 7 out of 10. I still thought it was great. So this one follows a brother and a sister, and they were part of an accident, I think it was about a year before, or something like that, where they lost their dad and their younger brother, and their mother is still alive, but she has been bedbound since. And they keep getting a phone call of the person who committed the crime, and even though he's in jail, he seems to be appearing at their house, and oh, it's again, like, it's the faces. I got chills. Oh my god, I just got shivers. Like, now I'm looking around my house right now. The kitchen door's open and I can see the back door, and I can just picture one of Junji Ito's people there. Like, I can picture him there. I can picture him. Like, he's freaking me out. The fact he's just standing there, I'm just, but he's in jail, like, he's not even supposed to be there, so, like, how is he there, you know what I mean? So I did find that really, really creepy, and he keeps saying, please forgive me, and every time they're like, no, no, and they're, like, trying to get him away, but it just keeps happening and happening and happening. It just doesn't stop coming, and it is very unnerving. I mean, there is a little bit of a nice end to this short story too, so yeah, it was good, but I think there was probably a lot better Junji Ito stories out there, so I think a 7 is pretty good. And then I think one of my favourite ones from this collection is the next one, which is The Mystery of the Haunted House. I gave this one an 8 out of 10. I love the idea of haunted houses, and I love Junji Ito's take on it in this. So there is this weird guy, again, who has come to town, and he has brought with him a haunted house. And these two young boys here, they want to also experience this haunted house. So they try and break in at night, but the guy who owns it, he is there, and he lets them go inside. And oh god, and it's very gnarly. Even though I think at this point I was just like, alright, it's just a haunted house, like, it's not too bad. Even though there are like real people who seemingly don't want to do what they're being forced to do, it's actually when we see the main guy, the one who owns the haunted house, we see him with like nails, but also when we meet his son. Oh my god, his face again, it's the eyes. It's the eyes, it's this. Oh, this ugly little bastard. God, I shouldn't have said that, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be so paranoid. I don't think I'm gonna get to sleep tonight, to be honest. Oh no, I'm gonna be dreaming of this little shit. Oh no. But you know what, actually, I don't even think he's the scariest part of this. I actually think it's the woman at the end. She's like so tall, and having these monsters or people who are elongated or just like too humanly tall, that really creeps me out. But also like her face is again like terrifying. Like just thought about I'm scared. Ash, can you come back? Can you come back, please? Oh, I've got both my babies. Do you want to see Tobu as well? Tobu's lying on. Where are you, Tobu? Hiya, Tobu. Hiya, Tobu. You're so beautiful. And then Ash is just lying there. Oh, me babies, they're so good. I'm gonna sleep down here with them tonight, I think. The next one is The Mystery of the Haunted House, Soichi's version. So it's about the same haunted house, the same person, not the same main character boy, but the same main character guy, who I think is Soichi, if I'm looking at it correctly. I think these two do connect, as well as the following one after that. But this one follows a girl who has been looking for the Suji family for about 10 years. And she actually used to be friends with the family who, well, half of them seem trapped in the haunted house and the other one is running it. So this one wasn't actually as interesting, so I gave this one a 6 out of 10. Even though it had, again, great visuals, this was predominantly about her trying to find the haunted house. She comes across it. Again, we have the disgusting child. But then, oh god, that woman comes back, I swear. I think she's the thing that freaks me out the most. I think out of everything, she scares me the most. Like, look at her. Look at her. Look how tall she is. I could just imagine her walking in through that bloody door and being like too tall, so she has to like crouch down. And then, have you ever seen, what's it called again? It Follows, when it's just like a random moment, but there's like this really tall guy who's like walking through a door frame or something. Oh god, that just freaks me out. No, now I'm scaring myself. Incredible visuals again, and it goes to Soichi, the guy who owns the haunted mansion, as a kid at the very end, which is a really nice segue into the next story, which is Soichi's beloved pet. Kind of goes through his like, well, a moment in time of his childhood where his sister finds a cat, and it's a beautiful cat as well, and Soichi wants to curse his family. He's a rotten little thing. He is evil. And who puts nails in their mouth? Like, seriously, that is so unhygienic. But yeah, he kind of terrorizes this cat until it becomes evil like him. It's a fine story. I didn't think I was that taken with it, to be honest. Parts of it were a little bit gross, and it actually like made me chuckle a little bit more than actually had me feeling scared, especially at the end with how Soichi turns out and this whole thing gets wrapped up. It's kind of a little bit funny. And then we get into In Mirror Valley, which I, again, wasn't really that taken by. I gave this one a 4 out of 10. It was very Romeo and Juliet, actually. I like the concept of it being about two rival villages. And, I mean, we firstly have I think just 3 guys. They come across the abandoned village. There are 2 that are opposite each other, and there's a valley between them. And these 3 guys, they come across this place and nobody knows where they went, but there are mirrors everywhere. So one of them gets a mirror and shines it, and yeah, it's just, you kind of get like transported into the past a little bit. It's a bit like a flashback about a guy and a girl, both on opposing villages falling in love. And they do become this like weird, massive, almost fornicating spirits between these 2 villages that hate each other, and the power of hate that each other has, and staring at one another. It's like a lot of like staring, and it was a little bit harder for me to really fall into because it was a little bit odd. Eyes full of hatred. It just didn't really scare me. It didn't. But I still cannot fault how absolutely stunning Junji Ito has designed it. And then we have I Don't Want to Be a Ghost, which I think is maybe a little bit more tragic than it is scary. I mean, we have this guy, it's almost a little bit like The Vanishing Hitchhiker, a little bit like that urban legend, where we have a guy, he discovers this random woman in the middle of the road in what appears to be the middle of the forest, and he takes her to a hospital. She ends up coming back into his life, even though he is married and he has a child on the way. But he starts to have an affair with her. She's a lot weirder than he anticipated. Oh god, it's the craziness that's in her face. The eyes, again, the openness of the eyes. They look like they don't even have eyelids. In the teeth. I mean, she just looks like a normal person there, really. But with the shadows and the lines, Junji Ito has just made her look absolutely demonic. And yeah, she eats souls and spirits. I gave I Don't Want to Be a Ghost a 5 out of 10. I thought it was a bit better than the previous story. It's a goodish story. Okay, no, it's an okay story. And then we get into Library Vision, which for the majority of it, I thought I would give it a better rating than I did. But I ended up giving this one 5 out of 10. I mean, I love the idea of a library. And I mean, the library in this is huge, massive, amazing. And it does play on that, well, almost like what I've realised with Junji Ito is sometimes he takes a sort of mundane fear, like a fear in something that you might have thought of once, and you just didn't really re-explore that idea because it's kind of unfathomable for it to happen. But this guy here who owns this library, it's in his home, by the way, and he lives with his wife, and he just wants to consume absolutely everything, all of the books, and he becomes crazy with it. Random things happen with his mum, his dad, which was quite frightening, but he does have this obsession of memorizing every single book in this library, which kind of is a nightmare I've had before. I'm pretty sure I've had a nightmare where I wasn't allowed to live unless I read every single book that I owned in my library, and that is a really scary thought because I have too many books in my library. I totally understand consumerism, it's bad. I have a large TBR. But you know, that thought has crossed my mind before. So this did play into one of my fears, and there are some, again, scary visuals. But I think overall, it just wasn't a 1 for me. But I still gave it a 5 out of 10, because I do appreciate the library. Then we had Splendid Shadow Song, which was another one that played into another mundane fear of mine, where, you know when you get a song stuck in your head, and you are worried that will be stuck in your head forever. Like, I get that. Even to this day, actually, there are certain specific things that I do, and if I do it, a song will just automatically play in my head. And this really plays on that fear to a T. So there is this young woman, she passes another woman who is singing in the streets, and she's singing this, I hate you, damn you, you're so stubborn, hanging on. Like, she's singing this, well, god-awful song, really. But this young girl, she goes home and the song starts playing in her head and she can't get out of her head. It's all she can think about. It keeps her up at night. She can't do anything. And that does, again, terrify me, actually, because it's very easy for a song to get stuck in your head. But, like, when you think about it, it doesn't sound scary in general, but it is when you think about, like, what that would do to your brain, what that would do to your psyche. If you can't get rid of it, like, what do you do? So that's kind of essentially what this story is about. She tries to seek help for it, and also, actually, the cover image too is the girl who was singing the song in the first place. She is the one who has been scaring me since I laid eyes on this book for the very first time. There was a really good flashback. There was a really good ending to it too. It almost feels quite poignant because it almost feels like a circle in the idea of repetition, which is, you know, a huge theme of that story. So this story I ended up giving a 6.5 out of 10. So then finally we get to Smashed, which is the last story in here, and that's what the entire collection is named after. I give this one an 8 out of 10. I think it's joint top for me. I don't know if I prefer this one or the Haunted House one, but I think both of them were pretty excellent. So we have this guy who brings this nectar back from his travels to South America, and it came with some instructions too. The tribe that gave him it said, you have to try not to be noticed when you eat this nectar. So the guy at the start, he shows his friend, and his friend tastes this nectar, but whenever you have it, everything else that you eat afterwards just doesn't taste as good. Like, it never tastes good. Nothing will ever taste good to you again. This nectar will pretty much be the only thing that you can consume and enjoy. But then the guy who brought the nectar home gets smashed, and they have no idea like what the hell happened. He's just like up against the wall, there's blood everywhere, he's being flattened, And the other people in this group have already tasted the nectar too. And I mean, they're confused at first and they continue to have the nectar, and yeah, they just kind of start to, well, pretty much die one by one. I think it's such a good story, very terrifying and gruesome. Probably the goriest one of this story. Would I say it? Yeah, I think maybe the goriest one of this collection. It was just so interesting. Loved the idea of it. Really enjoyed the ending too. We have this almost like a Lovecraftian sci-fi kind of looking tree. So I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was so good. So I'm really happy to have given it an 8 out of 10. So with all of those short stories averaged up, it does give the Smashed collection a 5.85 out of 10. And I think 5.85, nearly a 6 out of 10, is a really good start for this vlog. I think it's a really good starting point. And it's given me just a little taste of what Junji Ito can actually deliver. And it makes me so excited to read some more. And overall, it was a good collection. Didn't blow me away, but I still enjoyed it.